one time I walked in my kitchen. It was like lunchtime, and my wife said something, and I said something back to her, and then she just looked up. Who have you been seeing? You've been cheating on me, haven't you? Like, what? Like, how did you? There's nothing, zero truth to that. But it was like she just jumped to the wildest, craziest conclusion of because some sort of incongruency of I don't remember what it was, but it was something so minor, and I just misunderstood what she was asking. I'm curious, since my wife is kind of a wrapping question almost. My wife's a fearful avoidant, and she's brilliant, getting healthier and healthier as we both are. But I'm curious, how, as a partner of a fearful avoidant, how do I meet her needs? How do I create a safe space? And actually, I guess we both can move towards and we are moving towards a more secured attachment style. And fortunately, our daughter has a very secured attachment style, so we can see that. And after reading your book, I'm like, boom, she's secure. We're good. We're doing that part right. But how can I, as a partner of a fearful avoidant, how can I create a safe space for her to become more and more attached? What would that look like?
Yeah, so I want to say one thing really briefly, which is just that you can see, like in your discussion, that you are both moving towards secure attachment.
Yeah.
Even like your argument that you had, and you sort it out and you talk it through, like you can see so much, which is beautiful because I think it's nice for listeners to witness and know that, right? And lead by example. But yeah, so the big things for fearful avoidance, in order to trust, and you may not realize how much fearful avoidance distrust, because they don't often present as distrusting.
Yeah.
But it's almost like they like distrust society, the future, what could happen in 10 years,
Does that mean they're more susceptible to conspiracy theories?
Maybe. I like a good conspiracy theory, but but what you'll see is they tend to have this dynamic of like kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? And like never knowing exactly. Yeah.
That's what our fight was last night. I'm like,
so they need, in those particular cases, so I mean we can talk about like in that particular case, but in general, like from just partnership, they really need from partners transparency. I call them the 4 C's of trust. So the first one is, instead of transparency, we can call it context. So if you were to cancel time that you had, let's say, I know you're married, you live together, you have your child, but let's say you have a date night planned. And let's say you decide at the last minute you don't feel like going because you're feeling really tired. If you're like, hey, I don't feel like going tonight, it'll probably really trigger her. Unless you say, hey, honey, I'm really tired. I really care about the relationship. I'm like really not feeling up to it and I want to be present with you. Why don't we try tomorrow instead of tonight? So if you give context for something, why you're doing what you're doing, it really helps if you're avoidant feel like, okay, I understand now, and when I understand, I can let my guard down and trust. So context is huge. Consideration is the next most massive thing. So if somebody's considerate of your feelings, you trust them to take you into consideration, right? So if you say, hey, I'm thinking of doing this, how would you feel about it? Or, you're just being considerate of their emotions, validating their emotions in general. We trust people who consider us.
And I was not very good at validating emotions a couple years ago. So I would give myself a B- right now, but I'm moving towards a B, and I'll eventually get to a B+. But
it's beautiful that here you are doing this work, that's so powerful as it is, because a lot of dismissive avoidance, their whole like system is built around really not facing feelings or interacting.
I didn't touch feelings.
Yeah, exactly. So B- is amazing. Like that's huge growth. So consideration is huge. Congruency is another really big one. So if I say I'm going to do this thing, or I tell you a story of what happened last Saturday, and then later my story changes, it's like the biggest alarm bells ever for fearful avoidance as a whole.
Yeah. One time I walked in my kitchen. It was like lunchtime, and my wife said something, and I said something back to her, and then she just looked up. Who have you been seeing? You've been cheating on me, haven't you? Like, what? Like, how did you? There's nothing, zero truth to that. But it was like she just jumped to the wildest, craziest conclusion because some sort of incongruency of I don't remember what it was, but it was something so minor, and I just misunderstood what she was asking.
Totally. And that's so important for fearful avoidants to heal their core wounds, because
Yeah.
if I have a core wound, I will be betrayed, which is a huge FA core wound.
Yeah.
And then I notice the incongruency, then guess where my mind jumps to? It doesn't jump to like, well, maybe you told the story wrong. It jumps to like the worst case scenario core wound, because that's how our mind works, right? So absolutely. So that's huge. And then also consistency. Consistency goes a very, very long way with trust. So building trust by giving those four things is huge. I really want to stress that, like a fearful avoidant especially, they do have to do the inner reconditioning work. Like, it'll be unlikely that somebody does everything perfectly in a relationship and then they just heal. They have that interdependent piece, which means they have the relationship to self too. But it's super important to get those things first. So trust, those 4 C's of trust go a very long way. Validating feelings goes a very long way. And and if you can make sure that when you do, if there is something that hurts her, right? Like, let's say something, you forget something, or, a human thing that we do. If you can make a strategy to prevent it from happening in the future, it's like, that's when they'll actually feel resolved. So that goes a very, very long way too. And then, I would definitely, if I were you, I would definitely encourage her to communicate her needs, because sometimes she won't. And a lot of fearful avoidants get resentful because they put a lot of pressure on themselves to show up like 10 out of 10 in the people they love. And then they forget that, like, hey, not everybody puts as much pressure on themselves for how to show up in a relationship. And so sometimes I have to, like, first of all, not put so much pressure on myself. But second of all, if something does feel missing, I have to share it. I have to open up about it. I have to ask for it. So encouraging that in the relationship. Hey, honey, I can see you're upset. I want to know what's going on. I want you to tell me what happened. Like, I'm here to listen and do whatever you need, but you need to also talk to me. I can't mind read. Like, that's an important, thing to do in the relationship. So I'd say those are some really great places to dive into.
Love that. And it's one of the things I've seen with my wife for the fearful avoidant is like recognizing that her needs are valid, and boundaries issues, like she had so many boundaries issues, and of course, narcissistic parents and all that jazz growing up. And so now she's more comfortable with, instead of hitting the fall off the cliff point, acknowledging, hey, I'm exhausted here, or I'm heading towards this, I can't do this. And I'm better at recognizing when she's about to, or also acknowledging her feelings when she's at that point, so that I don't just brush past the feelings, right? Because she might say, I kind of need to go to bed or whatever, and I would be frustrated. I'm like, why are you so tired? It's only 9:30 or whatever. I'm like, I was looking forward to hanging with you, and now whatever. But now we're learning to trust. I'm learning to trust and recognize her feelings more. She's learning as well to recognize her own feelings, and that's okay for her to express her feelings, and also okay for me to express mine.
I love that. That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
And the boundary part you said is so important too, because, that's such a good example. Like, if you grow up in a household with a narcissist, like, and I don't mean like the throwaway term, like, oh, narcissistic, the way people are like throwing that term around, but like narcissistic personality disorder, like, your boundaries are unsafe. It's unsafe to set boundaries because you'll get too severe of a punishment. So even though boundaries are supposed to be the exact thing that keep you safe, if it's the inverse, then you think that having a boundary will be what makes you unsafe. And so there's a lot of work that that goes into that, but it's really, really powerful work to be doing. And it's beautiful that she has you supporting her and like doing that work together.
Yeah. Love it. Thais, I could talk to you all day. You've got such great wisdom and joy. And I'm curious though, where can people go to find out more about Personal Development School, all the work you do, your books? Like, what are next steps that, if this is resonating with you? And by the way, I've already bought many of your books for my clients. My next retreat, everyone's getting Learning to Love. But curious, where should they go to find out more?
Yeah, so I put daily content out on YouTube, so it's Personal Development School Thais Gibson, and then we have a free attachment style quiz on personaldevelopmentschool.com, where you'll get a little report of your attachment style and your core wounds and needs. And then last but not least, I actually run a quarterly certification program to become a certified relationship coach in integrated attachment theory, the published and trademarked body of work that we have. So people can check that out all at personaldevelopmentschool.com as well.
Love it. And everywhere on social media, is it where your YouTube handle again?
Yes, it's personal development school dash Thais Gibson. And then also Instagram is personal development underscore school.
Okay, sounds great. Well, all the links will be below, guys. Thank you so much for being on, and it was just an honor to connect with you. I can't recommend her book enough, and her YouTube videos. I've already been sending them out to clients, guys. Some of her best ones will also be in the links here down below, and so excited to have you on and honored to have you.
Thank you. I had a blast hanging out with you, and this was so sweet. Thank you so much.